There's been some great speakers here already, people with great technical knowledge, and I think I'm here, I've asked myself why I'm here, but I think I'm here for a street speak. I think I speak from the street. Why I'm here is because in 2015 I was homeless and I went into social housing. Social housing that was the basis for me to rebuild my life. I didn't have very much at that time. But I moved into social housing, and after 2 years I got a knock on my door, and I'm going to give you a couple of names here. One is Beryl Openshaw Maguire. Openshaw, great that, isn't it? I don't think it's a Brooklyn situation, but Beryl Openshaw Maguire and Audrey Middlehurst, two ladies. I don't think they'll object to me saying at that time they were in their early 80s, and they were telling me that there was a proposal by our local housing authority to take down 4 of 7 blocks. I lived in one of the blocks on the 15th floor, and I thought, that can't be right. And I didn't want to lose my flat. So I got involved in the campaign, as I suspect a lot of us will have done. And I got involved in the campaign and seeing people, and at this time I just wanted to save my flat. I didn't want to move, I wanted to save my flat. And I got involved with the campaign and also with Greater Manchester Tenants Union. One of my colleagues is here today, Ben, and we got involved, and with the support of the union, and I have to say, and I'm not sure this applies to every campaign, but I have to say, with the support of our local council, Labour Council, all our councillors got behind it, and not only the councillors, but a name that will be known to many of you, Sir Tony Lloyd. We went out door knocking with Tony to find out what people wanted, whether they wanted the blocks knocked down. And there was also another estate across the road that David Cameron had stood on the pavement, and he said it's a sink estate. It's the worst example. And a lot of my friends lived on that estate. That was a deck access estate, whereas ours was tower block. But with the help of the council and with the involvement of Greater Manchester Tenants Union, we took the housing association on. And with Beryl and Audrey doing the door knocking and doing the leafleting, they were out there. We got a strong campaign together. We got a good profile, certainly in Manchester, that we didn't want these 4 blocks taken down. They're iconic in Rochdale. Next time you see Rochdale mentioned on the telly, just have a look and see what they show. It'll be my home that they show. And that's one of the values of it. But the true situation was that knocking 4 blocks down would cost us nearly 500 homes. The waiting list at that time was 20,000 people. There's been people here talked about numbers, but that's the actual. And I thought, that can't be right. That just can't be right. So we carried on with our campaign, and we were getting on very well. I've got some notes here. I've drifted away from them. But the point is that in terms of numbers, in terms of social housing, demolition cannot be a way forward. There are many campaigns like ours nationally. Demolition for gentrification is not acceptable. It's not acceptable with 150,000 children homeless tonight, going to bed in bed and breakfasts and hostels. It is not acceptable. Demolition is not acceptable. And my colleague speaker, my fellow speaker, mentioned about in Haringey about refurbishment. The Housing Rights Bill is really, really important, and the fact that it's been picked up so quickly by this government is really commendable, really, really commendable. But tenants were offered the Renters Reform Bill in 2019. They were offered the end to Section 21. And during that time, until the election, Section 21 in particular was watered down and watered down and watered down. And we all know the reasons behind that. Section 21 has to be ring-fenced. It has to be solid. My colleague from Liverpool here mentioned it has to be solid with no loopholes, no ways out for the rogue landlords. Let's be clear, we're only talking about rogue landlords here, to use it, to say, oh, we're going to sell the property, and then find it back on the market to rent within a month. Or we want it for a family member. That has to be established. That has to be proved. So in Rochdale, I'll give you another name now, Awab Ishak. That's when Rochdale became the centre of the universe for housing. That little boy lived less than a mile away from me. He had parents, young parents, who didn't speak English, who, no matter how many times they asked, they couldn't get the housing association round to deal with the damp and mould. And as I said, with English as not as their first language, they found it difficult. And this was a word that the housing ombudsman used about the way that they were treated, and that's othering. That can never happen again. A 2-year-old little boy died with fungus in his blood. That can never, ever happen again. Not to one child. But it is appropriate that his name has been carried forward in terms of Awab's law. And it is right that the private rented sector will have the benefit of protection against living in somewhere that isn't safe, dry and warm. It's not a lot to ask, is it? It is a human right, and that should be a prerequisite. But going back to the beginning, the Renters' Rights Bill is great and it is fantastic, but there are things we need to be doing now. Refurbishment now, and refurbishment of properties that are empty now. And if they're not being refurbished, let's look at CPO. Let's get them back into the system. Let's get them back into social housing. But the Renters' Rights Bill is here. Let's not forget that there are tenants tonight that will be in their homes, frightened of Section 21, and also living in conditions that they're frightened to address with their landlords. But most of all, let's not forget we're doing it for Beryl, Audrey and Awab.
Thanks, Mark. I think that